Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the most overpowered heavy crossbow build in Baldur's Gate 3, utilizing the fighter class, and in particular their Arcane Archer subclass. Now, I've debated between using the Eldritch Knight and the battlemaster fighter, but I'll show you a couple different combinations you can do. Now, for this, we want to take the archery fighting style, as we're going to be doing most of our combat with our bow. I like defense though for the +1 armor class, but archery just makes the most sense. Now, for our ability score spread here, I think it's actually best to go with a higher dexterity. The strength-based option is the Titan String Bow, but you can use the strength potions to give you even higher damage than is possible by investing in the strength stat. This then lets us take a 16 dexterity, 14 constitution, and 16 intelligence. This is our spellcasting stat for our arcane shots, and also if you want to run the Eldritch Knight. However, you can alternatively put those points into your constitution and run this if you want a bit more survivability, and if you don't care that much about the arcane shots. Level 2 gives us one of the most powerful abilities with Action Surge. This gives us 3 more attacks once we hit level 11. That is absurd. At level 3, we get to choose our subclass. Now, I'll show you, I'm going to take the Arcane Archer Fighter, but I'm going to give you a few mentions here for the Eldritch Knight. You want to grab the Booming Blade cantrip here, because this can trigger our extra attack. The Eldritch Knight is my personal favorite, because you can do Booming Blade and then 3 arrow attacks, and that's really strong. And then you can also use Mage Hand to throw healing potions at you. For the spells, you'd want to have Shield, as this is going to give you a +5 to armor class, extra survivability, and Magic Missile for those that aren't able to get hit by your bow attacks. And from the expanded slot, you can go with the Find Familiar for the Ravens there, or Long Strider. Now, I like the Eldritch Knight. The Champion also kind of works with the increased critical hit chance. Battlemaster for the maneuvers that you'd want to grab, Riposte, Rally, and then the Menacing attack, because you got a ranged Menacing attack that can frighten a creature. Riposte gives you a weaponized reaction, and Rally is non-counterspellable, and it gives you healing. But my preference is the Arcane Archer, because we get to use our very powerful Banishing Shot here. This will banish the target for 2 turns. It's really good because once you hit level 5, you can potentially take 2 targets out per action, and then you can, if you got Action Surge, that's 4 targets that you can potentially remove from combat for 2 turns. That turns the action economy in your favor big time. Piercing Arrow is nice, however, Arrow of Many Targets is way more beneficial. Sharpshooter benefits don't really apply properly to Piercing Arrow, so you do lose a little bit of offense here when you could use an Arrow of Many Targets and hit more targets than you could with this and do your full damage. This is an okay choice, but I like it in higher levels, and actually level 3, I think Seeking Arrow is a really good choice. This will allow you to hit targets that you aren't able to hit otherwise, because it can warp around walls there. And I also like Bursting Arrow because it's a pretty big area of effect and can do an additional force damage on enemies. Sometimes it's just the chip damage you need to finish off an enemy. And then another choice I like is Shadow Arrow to blind the target and do a little extra psychic damage. So the Arcane Archer is actually pretty strong. Level 4 gives us a feat here, and I'd recommend going with either the Alert feat. I like Savage or the Sharpshooter feat, but I find that I don't have enough accuracy at this level. However, you can alternatively take it, especially if you're going to use a strength potion. Level 5 gives us an extra attack. That's obviously a very big power spike when you come to consider. The Action Surge ability also gives us an extra one. And as mentioned at level 5, that's when you can do 2. You can attack and use your Banishing Arrow twice and hit 2 targets removed. It's pretty crazy. Now, at this level 6, we get ourselves another feat. I really like the Crossbow Expert, because this lets us use our crossbow at melee and not get disadvantage. Why is this a big deal? Well, if you got someone with the Baldur armor, which can double your piercing damage, you can go up close, and if you have Hold Person applied to an enemy, you get a free critical hit. And Arrow of Many Targets, if your first target is a critical hit, it'll spread criticals to everybody. So you can get close to everyone, guarantee critical hits, use your Arrow of Many Targets, and delete everybody. And the double damage from the Baldur armor is absolutely crazy for this. And this prevents you from getting disadvantage. I also don't mind going with the Alert feat for that +5 to initiative. It's really good to have that, but I'm going to grab Crossbow Expert here. I just think if you want to utilize the crossbow to its full potential, we're going to want to use it at closer ranges. Especially if we're going to use a Darkness cheese that I'll show you here. Not really a cheese. There's a lot of items in Act 2 around level 7 where you can use Darkness to your advantage. Magical arrows will overcome resistances to physical damage type, and if you miss an attack with a range attack, you can use a bonus action to attack the next closest target. This is pretty decent. It brings it up to par with the Eldritch Knight a bit with their ability to do bonus action attacks, but only if you miss. Just better than nothing, though. Piercing Arrow is okay. I mean, I prefer Shadow Arrow, but if you really want Piercing Arrow, it's sometimes nice with certain bows, because you can apply things like the Bane from Herald with that, which is a heavy crossbow. Level 8 gives us our 3rd feat, and I'd recommend at this point to take Alert. So we got Alert, Crossbow Expert, and Sharpshooter. +10 damage, can attack from close range, and we're going to go first. Indomitable allows us to reroll our attack die, or it allows us to reroll saving throws, which is going to be super useful. Level 10, then I guess we can take Piercing Shot. The others aren't really that great. Beguiling Arrow can be okay, but I prefer to just blind the target than charm them. And level 11, this is a big power spike. We get our improved extra attack here. Now, I like to just stick full 12 fighter, but you could potentially add in the War Cleric, because they give you bonus action attacks. So you get 3 of them per long rest. That's an okay option if you just wanted to add a bit of extra combat to your build. I also like to go with an ability score improvement, and on dexterity, we're going to use a strength potion to cover that there and bring up our overall damage output quite a bit. Okay, so I'm actually doing some pretty crazy stuff with gear here. Now, I personally really like to have darkness set up, so the Steel Watcher helmet once you get Act 3 is a must grab. You can get the Eversight ring in Act 2, which lets you see in magical darkness. This lets us shoot an arrow of darkness and then run up to that target and attack them at close range and have advantage from our crossbow expert. And we also want to do close range attacks with the Ballast Armor here, which will allow you to apply vulnerability to piercing damage. Otherwise, use the best available heavy or medium armor. Early game, there's lots of great options if you want to increase your overall armor class. But once we get to late game, we're going to be bursting with crazy damage. So I think this is a crazy pick, especially because we can also then take the Callous Glow Rings. Now, this is an interesting combination. So when we're lit up, illuminated, so most of our attacks we don't want to do from darkness unless it's a close range attack. This will do 2 extra radiant damage, and then that procs our luminous gloves, which will give us radiating orbs for 2 turns on the enemy. And then those 2 radiating orbs will trigger our boots of stormy clamor. Whenever we inflict a condition, we apply 2 turns of reverberation. So every single bow attack, unless we're in hiding and darkness, is going to do additional damage, apply a -2 to the enemy's attack rolls, and then a potential knock them prone. Crazy. And then I'm also going to use the Snowburst Ring, because if we deal cold damage, we do a 4.5 circle of ice around the target. And what you can do is then take the Drakethroat glaive, and it's got the Draconic element, which can add cold damage to our weapon. I really like the Crossbow of Arcane Force here as well. It gives you a bonus action ability to do 1d4 of force damage extra for a turn. So on your 3 attacks, that's an additional 3d4 damage. And then if you got actions, it's like 64 of extra damage. Becomes pretty effective, so that's a good one for golds. Also, you can shapeshift yourself into a Githyanki, equip this, and then change out of a Githyanki, and you'll keep all the psychic damage. This will enable you to use the Brain Drain gloves and then give the enemy mental fatigue, which will lower their intelligence stats. The Fabricated Arbalest is great too. This gives you the Blinding Shot and Illuminating Shot, which is a radiating orb attack, which is also nice if you have Call the Weak, because this gives you a bonus action that does a 1d4 piercing damage. And this can sometimes, if you have an enemy low health and you just need to pick them off with Call the Weak, this can apply it. Pretty good. I've done hand crossbow build, so I'm going to stick to just using heavy crossbows here. You can use the Hellfire engine. I think this is the coolest looking crossbow. It comes with lightning arrow at level 4, which isn't normally possible. However, just a heads up on this can be counterspelled, and it's going to use your intelligence stat, and it's not really that great of damage. It says 64, but that's not really the true number of damage you'll be putting out on the enemy. Now, there are some really good earlier game options for crossbows, like Giant Breaker, I really like. So this will apply reeling on your attacks, and reeling does a -2 to the enemy's attack rolls, similar to Radiating Orb, so we can actually lower the enemy's attack rolls quite a bit. And then Herald is really good as well. Whenever you deal damage to a target, you can possibly bane them for 2 turns. So Herald or the Giant Breaker are my actual preferences for the best weapon, because these give debuffs on your attacks, and we can attack multiple targets. So Herald or Giant Breaker, depending on if you want to either debuff or apply the reeling. And make sure that you pull your crossbow at least once, and then you're going to take your elemental weapon here, and then we're going to apply the cold. You can also use the you can also apply lightning or thunder damage, and then use the gloves of the belligerent skies as well. But you see now our bow attacks do a 1d4 of cold damage, and when we attack and actually land a shot, we're going to create a patch of ice below the target, which then also gives them radiating orbs. So they can slip and fall. He also got hit with reeling and radiating orbs. So he has a -4 from attack rolls just from one single bow attack. So this is really good for protecting our allies, but it's also going to break concentrations with the ice. If you want for your main hand weapon, Dolar Maris will give you additional 7 damage on a critical hit. And if we're up close, it's doubled with the Ballast Armor. So it's 14 extra damage. That's absurd. We could also go with the Knife of the Undermounted King, because Shadowblade will sometimes give us advantage on our bow attack rolls, which is massive. I also like to take the Nyrulna here for all the bonuses to movement speed, and it lights you up. You can also just throw it if you wanted to. Fowler Alluve is another good one because the Shrieking Song, you can use that to debuff the enemy even further. And we're not doing melee attacks, so this doesn't really matter. It's an Act 1 item that lasts a full game, and the Shrieking Song can deal additional thunder damage onto the enemies. And if you with an evil playthrough, Sharp Spear of the Evening gives you blindness immunity, so you don't have to wear the helmet, and you could instead use like the haste helmet or your preferred helmet of choice. I'm personally going to go with Dolour Maris because that 14 extra damage is nuts. And I don't know if I mentioned, but I have the Luminous Gloves there to apply the Radiating Orbs and also the Cloak Protection too. Now, I didn't even use Hero's Feast or anything to boost myself up. And also, if you're not going to use the Helmet of Darkness, or the Serial Watcher helmet here, you can also use the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, because this will actually help with landing our special shots there. So, lots of great choices. Now, I personally like to set up and have Darkness somewhere really early on. So my typical go-to is to set up an Arrow of Darkness here. This will do the cold damage on the attacker, though, so it's, I guess, one downside to this. But you can also set up to destroy that if you have the Helldust Gloves, because it'll do cold damage on the... it'll do fire damage on top of the cold damage, breaking the surfaces. But an Arrow of Many Targets can be nice, too, especially if you get that automatic critical hit off. Because you can see there, we did 2 turns of Reeling and 2 turns of Radiating Orbs, so the enemy gets an automatic -4 to their attack rolls. And also Reverberation stacks, additional damage, and an ice surface below them. So pretty crazy debuffs already. Yeah, it's nuts. We can also then go ahead here, and 3 targets are going to be hit with the Piercing Shot here, so that's not a bad choice. Because again, you're going to apply those Radiating Orbs onto the enemy there. We didn't get the extra abilities off, but that's fine. Now we can also then do crossbow attacks at close range. That's one of the nice things about this, is because the Crossbow Expert lets us actually attack right in their face, and applied Reeling on the enemies there. Perfect. So this now has -6 to the attack rolls. It really does mess them up quite a bit. And then the nice thing is there's ice surfaces, so they have to run through that or jump over it in order to get to us. That's perfect. Now we have lots of debuffs on the battlefield, which is perfect. But we can then also go ahead with forcing them around, like Roaring Thunder, and even Arrows of Darkness are nice because then it creates a pocket where they have to move away from that area, and it cuts off line of sight from your team. So I also like going with that option there. And I guess we'll try to hit this target way back here. So we'll go ahead and apply debuffs to those enemies there. Perfect. This also creates ice surfaces, which is exactly what I want, because then when they go to move, they're going to end up slipping and falling, which is going to end up losing their turn. We somehow we missed the first one and took the ones behind it. That's perfect. We ran out of actions. That's usually a big issue, but the big thing with this is we got our action surge there. So the Eldritch Knight would even have further options. I guess this is a good time for me to shoot an Arrow of Darkness right here. We missed that shot, but we can use our bonus action to make it hit another target. And the funny thing is, yeah, this is something I was going to mention. Whenever you use Curving Shot, it's actually going to spread the ice surface and, I guess in this case, the darkness to 2 locations as well. So that's pretty nice. We now have our darkness set up, which gave us the advantage there. Amazing. Oh, I shot the ground. That is not ideal. There's a mod that actually prevents you from doing that. I usually have it installed, but boom, that went around and hit. Oh, it hit the target way over there. So perfect. I have my darkness. It's now ice set up, so I'm just going to end my turn there. But you can see, we got lots of debuffs applied with the Reeling, knocking them prone. Yeah, the enemies are screwed. In most situations, you're going to, yeah, 2 prone. Oh, goodness. I don't even have to, or I might have to move here. I'm going to try. Perfect. We were able to get a shot off. And then we should be able to finish them all right there. The beautiful thing about the Fighter and the Arcane Archer in particular is if we had a difficult target that we had to deal with, we got Banishing Shots as well to tie them up. Bursting Arrow 2 to do area of effect damage. The Arcane Archer actually has an answer for pretty much everything here, and combined with all the debuffing powers of the gear that I showed off in this video, you can do a big number on enemies. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and I hope you have a great day. We'll catch y'all in the next one.